Hi, welcome to Let's Go Kickass today. I'm your host, Vicky Carter. This is a monthly podcast where I chat to inspirational people from the fields of music, adventure and culture. People who basically are really kicking ass and making their own rules in life. So if you want to feel empowered and inspired, you've come to the right place. In this episode, I talk to musician Mai.K about the storytelling behind her music, bringing and uniting people together and letting them feel as one.
Being a voice for the voiceless, and it's about justice, and it's about doing what's right.
I also talked to Lauren and Torsten from Team Fran about them being wannabes in the world of polar expeditions and their desire to take on Antarctica and how they will do so.
I think you have to just start. You don't always have to know how to get to your end point, as long as you know what you want and, more importantly, why you want to do it. If you've got that passion, just work out what the first step is. Do you need to get a book? Do you need to go to a place? Do you need to go on a course? Do you need to speak to a person? Just go and do that thing.
Last but not least, I talked to Gemma Seyfang about her experiences of having the rare Pompe disease and Usher syndrome, but that hasn't stopped her from being fun and positive and inspiring other people.
She said that the man came round to our house to fit the hearing aids, and I went outside into the garden. I came running back in and was like, Mummy, the birds are singing.
First up is musician Mai.K. I have a chat with her about what inspired her to create music, her collaborations, and juggling motherhood with music. Tell me about your journey to London. How has that shaped you and your musical journey?
I think it's influenced everything that I do. So I was born in Syria. Raised there for about 5-6 years, and because of the nature of my father's work, we traveled a lot. So we went to Germany for about 5-6 years, went back to Syria, and then we came here and we never left. We moved a lot, so there was so many things going on and everything else, and you see lots of different things, and you kind of just apply it to your life, I guess. And now we're here. I'm here for a long time.
That's the thing. I completely understand. I mean, I grew up abroad as well. I grew up in Bahrain and I moved around a lot as a kid as well. And you kind of get this like nomadic lifestyle.
Exactly.
And you get used to it and it really opens your own experiences.
Definitely. And you see different cultures. You kind of, I think you start to become adaptable and you kind of just understand a lot of situations, and which is a nice thing. It's a really, really positive thing.
And I feel that through your music as well. There is a lot of empathy. There is a lot of storytelling and inspiring others and educating others. Do you always create music with a strong message behind it? Yeah,
100%. I feel like that life is a crazy thing. There's so many things to talk about. There's so many things to... I think one of the most important things is just kind of touching people, because a lot of the times I do want my music to touch people when, for example, they're alone, or even if not, but I just want that lonely feeling for them to know that there is, you're not alone. There's someone there and they're going through the same thing as you, And in terms of subject matter, there's so many things to talk about. You can't run out, Yeah, and that's what I have in mind when I write my songs. It's just, what do I write about this time? What do I feel? What have I gone through? Yeah.
You create that wonderful connection.
Yeah.
And especially with your new album, Reflections, I feel like you're taking a journey through the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Is there a song where you feel it was really quite hard to share with the world?
No, because I feel that... So I'm quite private anyway, but I feel with my music I can just say what I want. So it's not difficult at all for me. In fact, it's more of an opportunity for me to actually open up when I'm not really that open. Sometimes, I do keep a lot of things to myself. So when it comes to music, I can just say what I want and it feels good. Yeah.
And people connect with another level. I mean, they might not even realise that they feel the same emotion until someone else has sung it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you've done so many fantastic collaborations with Loki. I mean, there's quite several songs, Ghosts of Grenfell and Sunday Morning. Is there any song out of all those collaborations that you feel that you most connected with?
I think Ghosts of Grenfell, because... what inspired the song or the tragedy that happens, it's just unspeakable. You can't really put in words how bad it is. And I feel that it's kind of, a song, it's a voice for the voiceless, basically. It's sad, and I kind of connected with that song a lot because it affected so many people,
And it tells so many people's stories as well. You watch the video and you know it's impossible to not be moved by it.
It's coming together and, again, being a voice for the voiceless, you know, and it's about justice, and it's about doing what's right, really. Yeah.
That's incredibly inspiring. I mean, I wish there was more music artists who thought like that and created.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, everyone speaks from their own experiences and everything like that, but I do think it's important to speak for the people as well. Definitely. And Loki does that with me. Yeah.
Dream team.
Yeah, definitely.
And focusing on your style R&B, I mean, I really heard instances on I Need You, Little Arab Girl, and I hear the similarities of like Ashanti.
Yeah.
And where did it come from? I mean, I've heard that it just came from a CD in the street, and how has that influenced your style?
It actually did. So when I was younger, it was all Arabic music that I listened to because obviously I lived in Syria, and when I came here, it was a CD on the floor outside.
No way.
Near my house. It was an R&B edition of Smooth Grooves. So I heard it, and it was kind of like, what was that? What was that sound? Yeah. And when I started singing, a lot of people used to say, where do you come from? Because you have a certain sound to you. So it was kind of mixed between, you know, Arabic music, and I think some of my melodies were a little Eastern. And that's how it happened. I think it was just meant to happen. It was meant to be, you know? So it was a mixture of those things. That's where it came from. Yeah.
It's unique. It's beautiful. We're so lucky.
Thank you.
And so you took a break from your music career to have a wonderful son. What's it like juggling motherhood with music?
It's actually crazy.
I can imagine.
Yeah, having a baby is kind of the most biggest things I probably would ever do. And my focus was on him. And coming back to the music is wonderful. I feel that I can do anything. And
you're kick-ass. Like, you're managed to manage so much.
100%. That's how it feels like. It's very empowering. It's a lot of emotions, but having a baby is the best thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
Thank you.
And what's in store for this year?
We're re-releasing Reflection, but in 3 parts. I feel that a lot of people need to hear the music. More people need to hear the music, and I didn't get a chance to promote it as much because of my baby, having a baby, and not because of my baby, because of having a baby.
Of course. Well, sorry, but you go through a lot. You need to have a bit of a break. Come on,
exactly. So we're gonna release the project again in 3 parts, and this is this year, and there might be new songs on it as well. And yeah, so it's all about promoting, performing. We're going to be performing live this year as well, a lot. And
it's exciting.
Doing what I love, basically. Yeah.
Very great. So where can people reach you and find your music?
You can go on it's Mai.K.music.net, and you can find all of my social media on there, all of my news, all of the events, performances, etc. So this is Little Arab Girl, and it's by Mai.K. I hope you enjoy it.
She cries every night. She lives through 1,000 lives. She feels the need to be strong, and she will gladly take this on without a fight, without a fight. She sees hope in her little sister's eyes. She bears the hardship cause she feels it's right. She feels the need to be strong, and she will gladly take this on without a fight, without a fight. Cause big brother died, her father died, her mother's still living, but she's holding her burden, and she's looking after her siblings and her mama's eyes awake, but nobody is around. Girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears at night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears at night. nothing. What escape has she from a life that she did not choose? Would you walk a mile in her shoes without wanting a change of circumstance? 'Cause the brother died, her father died, her mother still living, but she's holding her burden and she's looking after her siblings and her mama's eyes awake, but nobody is around. Girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night.
I want to represent all the refugees, because I want to show everyone that after the pain and after the storm come calm days. I want everyone not to give up on their dreams, or I want everyone to do what they feel in their heart, even if it's impossible.
'Cause big brother died, her father died, her mother still living, but she's holding her burden and she's looking after her siblings and her mama's eyes awake, but nobody is around. Girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. No Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Little Arab girl, don't you cry, they're worth your tears a night. Yeah. Oh, they want your tears and oh,
That was Mai.K with her song Little Arab Girl from her new album, which, by the way, you can find out more about her and her music on her website, maikmusic.net. Next up is Lauren and Torsten from Team Fran, who met in bizarre circumstances, and they've now pushed each other to take on their biggest challenge yet.
First of all, tell me, how did you guys get your name Team Fran?
Well, the name Fram is basically the name of a famous Norwegian polar ship that was used by explorers like Fridtjof Nansen, Otto Sverdrup and Roald Amundsen on their expeditions. And the name itself, Fram, is basically the motto Nansen had in Green for his Greenland attempt, which means always going forward, always going onwards, because it means literally forwards in Norwegian. And yeah, since Nansen is my personal hero and my inspiration for doing all this, we thought it would be a fitting name, so we went with it.
I love that. I love that inspiration and motivation to keep going forward. What is it that you're actually doing here?
Well, we have designs on the poles, both poles, if the Arctic is still skiable when we finally get around to it, which is sadly looking unlikely at this point. But we love the cold and we want to do lots of cold exploration. Our next big thing hopefully being Greenland.
So you're planning to cross it in 2020?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's a huge goal. That's not something that you just kind of like pluck out of thin air. I mean, it's a huge challenge. What really inspired you both to do it?
Well, I think it's one of the classics. You know, I think if you're training up for doing the Antarctic, they like to see that you've done. They don't just like, they have to see that you've done something similar. And Greenland is a slightly more accessible and slightly shorter journey, perhaps, than the Antarctic. So it's pretty much the classic, and it's also probably one of the original expeditions for polar exploration. As Torsten was saying, Nansen crossed it, and it was not quite the start of polar exploration, but it was certainly a turning point and an entry into modern exploration. So it seemed like an obvious choice for us to do.
So Greenland really is just a small step to where you want to go to next. It's a stepping stone. Crikey, that's I'm quite terrified for you. I mean, it's exciting, but also terrifying.
Yep, Yeah, I mean, there's lots of talk about crevasses and polar bears, and the pittorak are the winds, the katabatic winds that come down off the mountains.
Sorry, katabatic.
Katabatic, yeah.
Wow.
So those are winds that come down off of a mountain. It's about as air changes altitude and gets colder, it'll drop very fast, so it becomes a very strong wind. So they've got a special kind of katabatic wind in Greenland called the pittorak, and it's known for being pretty horrendous. So yeah, we're gonna have to pitch our tent very well when we're in range of those, I think.
Oh my gosh, but where do you learn all of this information? I mean, where's your research, and obviously you must have extensive training as well.
Yeah. So we did basically start from nothing. That's that's the fun thing, and that's also what we are aiming to share with other people on our blog, on our social media, how to actually get there. And yeah, we started out researching in the internet. You can research everything online. And
sometimes useless things, but sometimes useful.
And yeah, it's really hard to sort out the information out there. And pretty soon we realized that we would need training from actual professionals, and luckily there are courses out there you can just book on, where a polar guide, an experienced polar guide, would just take you out for a couple of days and show you the ins and outs of Arctic camping. And that's exactly what we did as one of our first steps to get our feet wet and get to know the equipment we need to use, and yeah, just get a feeling of what this whole thing is all about. And after we did that, we already got into networking with people, and yeah, just talking to other experienced people, asking them for advice.
We've been really lucky with the community, actually. There is it's a niche hobby, I suppose, so it's probably like most niche activities, but the polar community, if you can call it that, is brilliant. It's very supportive. People are very happy to share experience and help one another out. And we've met some brilliant people over the last year who've really given us a lot of help and advice and encouragement. Lots of famous people who've really given us a lot of their time and energy. We've been very, very fortunate in that.
That's what I love about you guys. I mean, you describe yourselves on your website as wannabes, and you're highlighting your journey from the start to your end goal. And we meet some people, famous people, Felicity Ashton or Ice Maidens, whoever, who you just see their end goal and you think it's quite unachievable. But you guys are really breaking it down step by step, so you're inspiring people and seeing the journey that they could take themselves, which I think is incredible. What's the training been like personally? I mean, there must be some times when you think, why am I doing this?
Yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, for me, I'd never actually seen real snow until the beginning of last year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in the south of England, it's, very lucky if we get a quarter inch of a
and then
a
there's
sprinkle
a huge
for a day,
drama if
and
there
then
is.
everything shuts down.
And you from the Alps here, Mr. Alps is like.
I did see snow, yeah.
Yeah, I think Torsten had seen snow. But yeah, when we went to the first sort of training we really did was we went to Oslo for a weekend, and they've got a winter park there where you can go and learn to cross country ski. So that's what we did. Booked on a couple of courses to just sort of get used to that, and that was my first experience of snow.
Gosh.
Fortunately, I loved it, and it was everything I thought it would be.
So the physical training is one thing. That is was for me just a bit of experimentation to find out what works and what doesn't work for me. So you can go running, you can go cycling, you can go roller skiing. Pulling tires is obviously the tested method everyone does, which is fortunately a thing I really like. But another side is the mental preparation, and that is also something we covered with reading up a lot about it and doing a course about psychology in extreme environments. So we basically knew what we were getting into and what could happen to ourselves mentally on these expeditions. So to prepare ourselves for all these situations and all these these angles, we try to cover as much as possible in the year we prepared for Norway, and that will certainly continue for Greenland now with all the extra skills you need there.
I think it is fantastic the amount of work that you've put into research and to really develop and learn as much as you can about it. But fair enough, you might have done so many research, but when you're actually there in that moment, it might quickly go out of your head and you have no idea. That's why I think it's really important. to have this relationship between the both of you. I mean, what's that like with your teamwork skills and motivating each other?
Yeah, we've been very lucky actually, just from randomly meeting someone with a very niche interest. It's hard enough to find someone that you can work very closely with, but actually we're really in tune on that sort of stuff, I think. I had really tough times on our last trip when had problems with, I couldn't get my hands to warm up and they were so painfully cold, and I was really aware that if I couldn't sort that out, if I couldn't sort my routine and my kit and things out so that I could keep my hands warm, then that really meant the end of exploration for me. It would lead to frostbite and lost fingers, and it's that could have been quite a bad thing for me. So I got very upset about that and was struggling with that. But Torsten was having a pretty good day and was able to then kind of lend me some of that energy, I think, and help me out and take on a bit of the extra work in the evening and just make that a bit easier for me. And then the next day we had almost a reverse. He was struggling with the snow conditions and I was feeling pretty okay about it. So I was able to do that for him. And we've been very fortunate really in that regard.
Yeah. And it's been basically the same all throughout the year we've worked together. We are also challenging each other in the trainings. One of the first things we did when we hadn't actually yet decided to go on expedition together, but just decided to exchange our training experiences, was to make a common spreadsheet where we would each put in how many miles we've run, and just to keep each other on our toes and challenge ourselves.
Competitive with it, yeah.
And that had really pushed me in the beginning, because I've never done any regular physical training except playing football, which is a bit different because it's fun. I don't really like running.
My training isn't fun, but I'm pushing myself to do it.
Yeah, but that really kept me going in the beginning, because I knew that if I didn't go this evening, then Lauren would gain on me, and
That's really good, because you're both based in different countries. So I was thinking, how do you keep motivating each other? But it's got that sense of competition.
Yeah.
But also, how do you factor in your training with regards to work as well? I mean, it must be a lot to juggle.
That is probably for me the biggest issue. I think probably for Torsten as well, really. But I'm lucky, I live about 4 or 5 miles away from my work, and there's a cycle path that goes the whole way. So I've been walking that for several years now. Great. And I've started running it instead now. I have become the person that pulls a tyre to work in the mornings.
Wow.
So
my gosh.
Yeah, I've now met people who've said, "Oh, that was you with the tyre." And it's, I'm tyre girl. And I've been seeing a personal trainer for the last year as well, a guy called Jules, who is crazy endurance athlete. He does a lot of 24-hour mountain races and really stuff that I don't know, feels like it's a bit beyond me, but he's been really good at keeping me going and also helping with the mental as much as the physical challenge to those sorts of things. That's really been good.
Where did you guys meet? How did you both meet?
So we have a shared hobby that's called live action role playing, which is basically like improvisational theater, and we met in Italy in a mine where we pretending to be in an asteroid base. So we were pretending to be in space, and just by pure chance afterwards we got talking about what our plans are for the future, and I told Lauren that my plan was to ski across Finnmark with her, and she wanted to ski across Hardangervidda, and then we decided we'd stay in touch to just update each other on our training, and that's where it all started.
That's incredible. I mean, really, you could meet anyone anywhere that someone shares the same passion as you, and you'll just inspire each other to go out and challenge yourselves doing something that you both love. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, it does feel like one of those weird meant-to-be moments, really. There's 2 niche hobbies, and we're from so far apart as well for us to meet that way and then actually work well together as well. Feel very, very fortunate, really, that we did meet.
Yes.
The universe works in mysterious ways.
Doesn't it just?
And finally, if someone is listening and they're thinking, "Oh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to give that a go," not just polar adventures and exploration, but anything, a challenge that they're struggling with, what would you say to them to inspire them to go for it?
I think you have to just start. You don't always have to know how to get to your end point, as long as you know what you want and, more importantly, why you want to do it. If you've got that passion, just work out what the first step is. You know, do you need to get a book? Do you need to go to a place? Do you need to go on a course? Do you need to speak to a person? Just go and do that thing, and then after that, you just have to do the next thing. I think I'm a really good example of this. I haven't really done much. I've never been on a multi-day hike. I hadn't until we went last year. I've never been camping on my own. There's lots of things I've never done. I'm not a really experienced outdoors person. I'd never seen snow until this time last year, and now I've camped for multiple days and skied for a long distance, and I'm definitely going to make Greenland. And it's been really difficult, and I've been very, very fortunate for the way things have worked out, and I've been able to go and do that. But it has just been one small step at a time, just working out the next thing and kind of staggering on to the next one, and eventually it just comes together.
I would add to that 2 pieces of advice, which are: don't be afraid to ask for help. People are more helpful than you'd think. We've benefited a lot from the knowledge and experience of other people. Usually they like to share what they've experienced and encountered. And the second thing is, don't be afraid to be afraid. If you're not scared, then it's a sign that you're not doing something new, something challenging. I'm scared when I start new things all the time, and that's actually a good thing. You just have to know how to deal with that and don't be paralyzed by it. But don't be afraid to be afraid.
Solid advice from Team Fran there. You really just have to go out and make your own opportunities. Don't be afraid of jumping into the unknown, doing something new, challenging yourself. Now, someone who's been repeatedly challenged by unfortunate circumstances in life is Gemma Seyfang. But what I really admire about her is that she doesn't let that stop her. Tell me more about what is Pompe disease.
Okay, so Pompe disease is a rare, inherited and often fatal disorder that disables the heart and muscles. That's particularly relevant for those that are born with the infantile onset. Most babies tend to not to make it past 1 year old. So I've got adult onset, so late onset. It's caused by mutations in a gene that makes an enzyme called alpha-glucoside, GAA. Normally the body uses GAA to break down glycogen, a stored form of sugar used for energy, so like glucose. But in Pompe disease, mutations in the GAA gene reduce or completely eliminate this essential enzyme. So then excessive amounts of glycogen accumulate everywhere in the body, but the cells of the heart and skeletal muscles are the most seriously affected. The diaphragm is a breathing muscle and is often disabled, causing respiratory failure and death.
Crikey. So most people are not expected to live past 1, really?
So if you've got the infantile onset, yes. Adult onset or late onset, juvenile onset, that means it progresses differently in individuals. So mine probably started to notice, looking back now I know, at the signs, I was around about the age of 13. So, but it was a slow, gradual process. Whereas those with that are born, it started in the womb, and so of course as soon as they're born, they're already struggling. Their heart is normally enlarged as a baby, and their lungs are particularly weak. In America, actually, there's certain states that test for newborn screening. So a bit like when we have the heel prick over here for babies. Can't think what that's for, but it's the same sort of thing in America. And they're finding and able to save a lot more children because they're starting them on treatment straight away. And they're able to. There's one I know that's just turned 1, and so there's a big celebration, over there for their child to have reached a milestone.
And what are the signs, the physical signs and mental signs that started to hit and impact you when you were a teenager?
Well, I didn't really, to be honest, it's all very natural. I don't think, until now I know, looking back is when I think, that's why that happened, and that's why I used to fall over, things like that, and struggling to run.
And your sister has this disease as well, so has it been inherited through your genes?
Yeah, so basically you need, to be able to get Pompe disease, you need 2 faulty genes, one from your mum, one from your dad. And you have a 1 in 4 chance of being affected, 2 in 4 chance of being a carrier, and a 1 in 4 chance of being unaffected. So I also have a brother as well. He doesn't want to get tested, but he is in his early 40s now, and he does like triathlons and things like that. So he probably hasn't got it, possibly could be a carrier, but he doesn't like needles and things like that, so he wouldn't like to get tested. And me and my sister are both affected, so we now, as I was saying to you earlier, my son will definitely be a carrier, as will my sister's son. So just when they have children, they'll have to test their partner to make sure that they're not gonna, if they're a carrier, which is very, very unlikely because it's so rare that they could pass on that as well.
And how does it affect your day-to-day every doings? Because not only that, you also suffer from Usher disease as well.
Yeah, Usher syndrome. So Usher syndrome is a form of deaf blindness. So I was born partially deaf, which actually nobody knew until back then. Now you have newborn screening, but back then they didn't test you until you were about 4 years old, and that's when they picked it up. And my parents didn't believe them. They were like, "There's nothing wrong with her. She's loud. She can hear us. She talks." Which was all true, but what I was doing, I'd naturally learned to lip read, so I was struggling with my hearing, and so things like parrot and carrot, the distinction between the two, I was having to really look closely to work out what somebody was saying, so things like that were affected. And then just as I was starting primary school, I got fitted with hearing aids. And my mum actually, she said, I don't recall it myself, but she said that the man came round to our house to fit the hearing aids, and I went outside into the garden. I came running back in and was like, Mummy, the birds are singing. And she looked at the man, and he was just like, she's never heard birds singing before. So yeah, I was like, oh, that's really sweet, isn't it?
That's so lovely.
So Usher syndrome, you start to lose your sight in general anyway. So I've now, 2 years ago, I was registered as partially sighted, and then last August I was registered as severely sight impaired, or blind as they call it now. So yeah, that's the end of that now.
Crikey though, but what was it like? I mean, it's tough for anyone growing up as a child and facing teenager struggles, but having all of that on your plate as well.
Well, as I said, I didn't really sort of notice it as a teenager. It wasn't until my son was born that when I'd go to carry him up the stairs as a baby, I thought, oh, this is like really difficult. As soon as he was able to crawl, luckily in the house that I lived in then, the stairs had a wall either side. So I used to go up behind him and he'd crawl, and I would just crawl up behind him, protecting him. So I didn't have to actually carry him. And then if he wanted me to pick him up, I'd normally get him to stand on something, be it the sofa or a couple of stairs up, so that I didn't have to lift him all the way from the ground. And I never really thought anything of it. And, then I started to struggle to stand up off of a chair. And if I dropped something on the floor, I'd kick it to the side, and I would hold on to that thing while leaning down to pick something up. And getting things in and out the oven, I started to struggle because they were heavy, and getting them all the way from the bottom up to the top. So now in our new house here, we have a high oven, so it's like a godsend really. But I look back on those things, and I just thought I was becoming lazy and unfit. I never thought anything of it. I just thought it was just something that was happening, and it's just me. I didn't realise there was an actual answer, a reason behind it all. So yeah.
Some people, if they found similar things happen to them, they would see that as an obstacle or a restriction, and they would not push themselves or challenge themselves like you have. What would you say to them?
Well, I think, with my diagnosis of Pompe disease, I wasn't that affected, but I think that's because I'd found out about the ushers before. So I'd kind of gone through like a grieving stage, if you know what I mean. I mean, I was so upset. I told my partner to leave me. I was like, you don't want to be with somebody like me. I'm no use to you. Your life is going to become difficult, which it is. He has to help me a lot more, almost like a carer to some degree. And everybody around me has to think about, like, when we go out, they're like, oh, watch out, there's a step there, there's a curb there, there's a bin there, there's a cone there, because all those things I'll walk into, fall over, and then because of the way that my body reacts, I injure myself easier. So, those things are difficult. But, I think when it came to the Pompe diagnosis, it was like, oh, okay, that's why, and it was kind of a relief in a way. And, but so I would say to people, the thing is, how I see things is, I believe now I've gone through sort of like the grief of it and come out the other side, I feel personally that I was meant to have these diseases. I know that sounds strange, but I feel that I was chosen because I'm a positive person, because I'm quite bubbly and outgoing, and I like to raise awareness. And so I'm using it in the best possible way by helping others, people that are newly diagnosed. I talk to those, and try and help them and support them. And I feel that was put on my shoulders because I am a stronger person for that reason. I'm positive like that, whereas other people may not be able to deal with it as well. But I think you do have to look for the positives out of it, because if I just sat here and was like, oh, poor me and hard done by, and you'd never get anything done in life, and it's not going to change it. I'm still going to have these diseases, so you may as well find the positives out of it and push forward, so.
That's amazingly inspirational, because you've now running your dad's business, you have a lovely family, a wonderful home, and it's just so inspirational, to see that. Who would you say is your main inspiration in life?
Oh, that's a hard one. I've been asked that before. I think my parents are definitely an inspiration to me. They started off, with nothing, and they were like, they bought their house back in the 70s, something like that, when people weren't buying houses, and people called them mad. They thought they were crazy, but they worked hard. My mum and dad both had a job, and then they both did a part-time job, so they were earning extra money. And my mum always tells me the story of when they first moved in, and just before the rates went up, the interest rates, and it was like going to be like something like £10 a month extra, and both of their parents were like, what are you going to do? How are you going to survive? And it's really funny, like looking back, £10 to us is nothing, it's how times change. But they always did that. They always pushed, and they made sure they worked hard, and they always taught us never borrow money, never get a loan, or if you want something, earn it, save it, and then you will feel so much better for reaping that reward, So I suppose they inspired me in that way. And, I got a house on my own with the help of my parents when I was 22 years old, single mum with a house, that's something to sort of shout about. And because of that, it's kind of set me in the way of being able to move forward, because I don't know how long I'll be able to work for. It may be something that becomes a massive challenge in the future, but if I can work now and earn and pay as much of our house off than I can, then obviously I'm not leaving that all down to my partner. So.
Crikey, single mum raising a kid as well as juggling, Pompe disease and Usher syndrome as well. I'm blown away. You're inspiring me, and your parents have inspired you. Is there any days where you're lacking in motivation, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I do have my dark days, because people look at me and they just think, oh, bubbly, happy. They do think that I'm always that way, but everybody has their down days. My darkest time was about July 2017, and that was the hardest time for me. That's when I lost my driving licence. So, and that was like a kick in the guts, do you know what I mean? That was something that I hate it now. Like it makes me feel so angry that I can't drive.
I can see the tears in your eyes even.
It's my independence, do you know what I mean? It's my legs. It was my way of getting around. I now can't just go, oh, do you know what, I fancy going to the shops. Yeah, I could walk to my local shop, to the co-op just down the road, but it's difficult. My partner worries I'm going to fall while I'm out on my own, so things like that. And if it's a dry and bright day, that's easy, but if it's wet, just a few leaves on the floor that are wet become slippery, they become easy for me to fall. So things like just, I can't just pop to the shops clothes shopping now. I've got to get a bus. And I only went on the bus, well, actually I haven't gone on the bus on my own yet, still haven't done that, because as much as I've got confidence in a lot of other things, I don't have confidence in my ability to be on my own. So I am very much always with somebody whenever I go out and about, because that does make me very nervous. I am scared of that. I do have a symbol cane, which I carry to make people aware of my sight, but you know what, people don't even see it. That's ironic, really, but people just don't see it, and then they'll bash into me because I haven't seen them, and then they kind of look back, and then they might see it, and they might think, oh right, okay, but like you can see that they kind of want to be a bit like cross with me, and then I'm like, I can't, what else can I do, so I am hopefully getting a longer cane. But I do find that if I'm walking around a supermarket, for example, and my partner's somewhere else in a supermarket, I do find that I feel like things are closing in on me, and I try and just sort of push through it. But yeah, I mean, it does become difficult. The not having a vehicle, not being able to just get out of it. And I understand it. I completely understand why I can't drive because of my sight. But I wanted to make the decision, but the decision got taken away from me. Do you know what I mean? And that was, honestly, I think they were really concerned about me because I was literally just wanted to sit on my own. I just wanted to sit and cry. And I wasn't myself at all. And that was a grief. That was like losing a part of me, you know. That was something that, and like I say, I don't think I'll ever like it. I've adjusted to it. I now get taxis to and from work, you know, and I have to rely on people to take me food shopping. My partner does most of the food shopping. But it's something so simple. You never realised how much you enjoyed going food shopping when it got taken away from you. Do you know what I mean? That sounds really pathetic. But like, you know, just being able to go to the shop is something that's quite simple and easy. But for me, that's now become something that I have to plan, you know. So, yeah, I mean, with regards to what I can say to people is lean on those around you. There are people that, you know, my friends are like, if you ever want to go to the shop, just call me. Pick up the phone and call me. And that is lovely, but it's hard to do as a person. It's hard to rely on other people. It's one thing relying on your partner, but your friends and that, you think, well, how many times are they going to want to pick the phone up to me going, can you take me to the shop? You know, probably loads from my friends, but I just find that a bit of a difficult pill to swallow, really.
I know that you're speaking about those restrictions on your own liberties and the prior organisation, but I think you answered yourself. I mean, the incredible things that you've achieved as an individual and the relationships that you've built and the obstacles that you've overturned, your friends and family are there for you and they care for you and they love you. Like, they will support you. Yeah. Regardless. So I think that's wonderful. And finally, where should people go if they want to support the disease? So Pompe disease, I'm part of the organisation. I volunteer, so help to raise money, and part of the Pompe support team. So the overall charity is called AGSD UK, which supports more than just Pompe disease. There's other storage diseases out there. There's not many, but there's a few, but Pompe falls under that umbrella. So AGSD UK would always welcome a donation. We're quite often trying to promote things like we've got recipe books for those with Pompe disease to try and help them, because they believe that having a high protein diet is beneficial to us. I've just done the calendars for this year. But yeah, we're always looking for ways, ideas as well, and for any volunteers that want to help. So with regards to Pompe disease, just as a fact for you, there's only around about 156 people in the UK that are known to suffer with Pompe disease. So I think it's 1 in 40,000 people that are born will be affected by Pompe disease. Isn't Gemma remarkable? Even though being 1 in 40,000 people suffering from Pompe disease and Usher syndrome, she's still so inspiring and positive. You can find out more about the charity and help out in any way you can on their website, agsd.org.uk. Well, that's it from me. Thank you to my fabulous guests, you for listening to Let's Go Kickass today, and join me next time for more Kickass people and their stories. Don't forget to subscribe.